Yes, welcome everyone here to the Smash Sports Show right here on Smash FM here on Lockdown Friday here in Melbourne. Of course, here on a very late Melbourne night here on Friday. But let's go across to our amazing friends over in the US and, of course, go to Louisville, Kentucky in particular. And, of course, this is where the Olympian in the US is based. And, of course, she is a medalist in both winter and summer Paralympics, as well as a gold medalist in the Winter Paralympic Games and the recent one in 2018. And of course, her name's Oki Masters. She joins us right now. Thanks, Oki, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. A lot of people don't know Oki's my nickname. I don't think it's like only my closest friends really know me as Oki and started calling me Oki. So Australia is like the first to really know my, I think, nickname.
Been a pretty difficult year for everyone, but I'm assuming it's even harder for yourselves over in the US, especially with, I'm assuming that you were preparing for the Olympic Games coming up in Tokyo. I guess for you, what have you been doing to sort of, prepare for the Tokyo Games or even the Winter Games coming up in 2022?
Yeah, it's trying to stay sane and keep things in perspective and drink a lot of coffee because 6-month turnaround from Tokyo 2021 and Beijing 2022 is absolutely terrifying when you think about it. It's just pretty athletically pretty difficult to peak for the highest two events within 6 months of each other. But yes, it's been in the US, it's been a very interesting process during the quarantine and being an athlete and still trying to train, especially now. The last 2 months, I've been watching on social media and the internet, all my European competitors just able to race and get back at it. And we're just still like, oh, this looks so fun while we're at home still training. But I, at first, did not have a gym set up at all at home. And as a Paralympic athlete in the sports that I do in cycling and skiing, I'm in the gym 3 times a week. And I had to get that set up. And of course, everybody wanted a home gym. So everything was back ordered and took months and months and months to get. But thankfully, the sport of cycling, I have an indoor trainer that I can ride a lot. And that was between the gym and getting that, they call it a smart trainer because you can Bluetooth it to an app through Zwift and ride virtually with anyone lifetime. And that's how I've been able to stay connected with my team and do virtual team rides and time trials and race through that. But as far as skiing goes, it's been really challenging to fit in everything and get the specific strength in the workouts in. But everyone's in the same boat for the most part. And I think that's what you just have to keep that in perspective is every athlete in 2020 has not had a smooth road. And it's just going to be, the competition is going to be more exciting because everyone is just so fired up to race. It's going to be cool and terrifying because everyone's going to be peaking and that'll be fun.
Tokyo would have been done and dusted by now. Actually, you know what? The normal Olympics would have been done and dusted by now, but obviously the Paralympics would be in the middle of that right now at this stage. I guess now with an extra year, of course, going to 2021, has that been sort of like a blessing in disguise in some ways in regards to preparation to give you an extra year?
Absolutely. Having that extra year for me personally, it is a blessing in disguise. I know for the sport of cycling, age isn't a real big factor. It actually helps you. For some reason, it just seems like the older you are, the more seasoned and your endurance level and everything is established. And I literally, in my class, am one of the 2 people that do not have a carbon bike. And my bike is just not fit for me. And it was one of those things that I was going to have to do what I can with what I had with the equipment. And in the sport of cycling, equipment is a huge factor of the sport. And just focus on my training. And now with this postponement, I'm able to dial in, take the time to get a bike that's custom made to me. Because as a Paralympic athlete, you want your equipment is like a track and field like runner's shoes. Like it has to be tight, it has to be perfect for them. If it's rubbing anywhere, they're just not gonna break that record. And Paralympic athletes the same, like your equipment is everything and you're only as good as your fit in it. And so yeah, I'm really excited for that opportunity. And then also put in more base miles because I am a winter summer athlete. A lot of times in the winter, I move out west to chase snow from where I live, and I'm not able to ride at all. And so this is allowing me to have a good solid chunk where I could just put in those base miles and good solid training. And then when this Nordic season ends, I'll be able to just fine tune things more.
Now, when do you think you're going to be able to, get back into actual training and preparations for the Tokyo Games, especially now being almost a year or less than a year out from it?
It's a good question. I think all of the athletes are training at home and doing what they can at home. Including workouts from my car or workouts with like local things, like things around my house, like food and stuff. You have to get creative. And those are things I could still do. And it kind of made you realize, wow, my house is actually a really good gym if I'm able to be open-minded to it and do things differently and use the furniture as a tool instead of a table safely. But so I'm still able to train and get that stuff in, the most bulk of training in, but it just won't be specific. And my races for cycling won't start because everything's been canceled until next year in I think beginning of April. And then everything is back to back to back within weeks apart. And then our trials are in June. And then the cycling trials if I find out if I make the team or not, actually lands on my birthday. So it's going to be either a really fun birthday or a really depressing birthday. We'll see. Hopefully it's going to be really fun. But but my Nordic season's about to start. It starts normally between December and goes through March. But we did find out that the first World Cup in December in Sweden already has been canceled. And so it's challenging because I'm going through it, all the cancellations all over again. I went through it from the summer side, and now like all the winter stuff is getting canceled because of the second wave that's coming.
Now, you mentioned before the difference between obviously the 2021 games in Tokyo and then a very quick turnaround to the 2022 Winter Games in Beijing. Obviously, luckily enough, it's pretty close to each other in the same region, so that must be a positive thing. But I guess, how are you going to be able to, I know this is going to sound a really stupid and dumb question to ask, but how are you going to be able to transition from the winter to from the summer to the winter in a short amount of time?
Well, that's the big question. I think, so my sports are really good. So cycling helps the endurance aspect of skiing. But a lot of people think that, it goes hand in hand, but it actually is complete opposite. And my body, so we do body comps and stuff, and like my whole body changes when I'm a cyclist to when I'm a skier. And the biggest thing, I think, to making that transition within the 6-month window smoother is right now I'm training for both. I'm making sure I'm spending time in the bike, but I'm also doing the skiing workouts. We have a stationary ski erg that I use, and that just kind of helps keep those muscles awake, so it won't hurt as bad. It won't be as much of a shock when I go to use those muscles as primary muscles. It's going to be also not getting injured or hurt or sick too, because I'm very injury prone and accidental prone. I'm a klutz, so it's going to have to make sure to just be smart and utilize each recovery day. And just like I said, like everything else, just keep it in perspective. You have to keep things in perspective. I am human. Of course, I'm going to set the bar unrealistically high, but you have to, because maybe you'll reach it. But either way, I'm going to give it my all, and I don't know like where I'm going to land in that, but it is what it is. I just love to be out there racing at the end of the day.
I guess we don't look too far ahead, but obviously with the 6-month gap that you're going to have between the summer and the winter games, I know you're focusing on the summer games in 2021, but I guess if it does come to the Winter Games as well in the 6 month span, are you hoping to plan to stay in the Asian region and just try and train there, knowing that it's going to be like very close by, or are you hoping to maybe return home and then go back there?
No, so I don't have the finances to support myself to live in Asia for the whole time. And the funding in the US side, a lot of countries, I'm pretty sure Australia is one of them, that they're funded by the government for the Olympic side and the Paralympic side. And the US is all, it's not government funded at all or supported. And it's all based on donations. And so this coronavirus took a huge hit within the whole budget as a whole Team USA too. So there's things that are going to be limited. We're not going to be able to go to all the World Cups because of all that. And 6 months is long enough where you can go home, still train, and then come back like 2-3 weeks beforehand and kind of adjust to time, or go somewhere within that area a couple weeks before the games to adjust. And then you only have a few more hours to adjust. It's kind of what we've done a little bit in the past. But I also have been to the Asia region like a lot of times, between mainly Japan a lot and then South Korea a lot the past 3-4 years because of Pyeongchang in 2018. And then we do a lot of races in not Tokyo, but in Japan, in the Northern Islands and stuff. And so I kind of have my techniques and tools of how to adjust. And the more I feel like you go to a specific country or time zone, the easier it is to adjust. So that's just one thing that, and technically for the US, we're going to be traveling west, which is easier to adjust to than compared to going east. And so that's kind of also just, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It'd be cool to be able to stay either in Japan afterwards or be in Beijing. I probably prefer Japan just because of the culture and the style and the food and the sushi and stuff. But, but yeah, we'll see.
Talk a bit about your sporting journey so far. As I mentioned in the intro, you have been medalist in every single, well, in both the winter and the summer. Do you have a preference out of the two? Do you prefer the winter or the summer?
This is such a hard question to answer because I love them both. I actually, when I started sports, I started as a summer athlete. I had no idea that winter sports and Winter Paralympics even existed for Paralympic athletes, for athletes with physical challenges or disabilities, as how society likes to put it. And so I had no idea that even existed, and skiing exists. I didn't even know cross country existed, Olympic or Paralympic level. But now that I've had in 2014, when I first got into the winter side, I think what I found that I love them both equally for different reasons. The cool thing about winter sports is it brings you to really exotic places that I feel like you wouldn't go unless you had a reason to, for work-wise or business-wise. Whereas a lot of our summer events are places that are destinations that everyone wants to vacation to. Because no one wants to go to, like, I'm going to go to Finland in December where it's dark and only 2 hours of sunlight. But they want to go to Italy in the summer. But it's just really cool. And I love the tanness that I get from the summer. And I love the exoticness, Eskimo feel I get from the winter side.
I love how you phrased that. Competing obviously two different sports, as you mentioned, skiing and cycling, in both, of course, the Paralympic in both winter and summer. Tell us how you got involved in both of those sports, and why did you end up choosing those two sports?
Honestly, the two sports that I compete primarily in now, well, actually it's three because I do biathlon as well, are not the ones that I started out as an athlete. I started out as a rower. Sure. And I always, rowing it's my favorite sport. I started when I was 13 and I did it for over 10 years and went to London 2012 for rowing. And I just love that sport. And I know it's actually really huge in Australia too. It's one of my favorite crews to watch too, and watching racing. But At first, when I got into sports, I wanted to do able-bodied sports. I didn't want to do adapted sports because it was called adapted rowing, adapted skiing, whatever it was. And now the terminology is para. Instead of adaptive, it's para rowing or para skiing or cycling. And I didn't want to do it because it was labeled adapted rowing. And because at that time, I had one prosthetic leg and one still real leg. And I didn't want the fact that because I had a prosthetic leg be the reason why I'm in this labeled different division of sport. I wanted to do what my teammates were doing, my friends were doing in middle school, which was volleyball. But then in my school, when I tried to do that, it became a liability issues for me that I would potentially hurt one of my school teammates because of my legs if they fell and they hit themselves. So I wasn't allowed to do that. And my mom was the one who really pushed me to just try rowing, just try it. And I didn't want to do it. And then I'm like, okay, mom, just stop asking, I'll go try it. And then little did I know, I mean, at the end of the day, like moms are always right. They push you. Yes. And they know when to push you. And even though you don't want to admit it sometimes, they are always right. And she was right in that case of just going out and trying. And I ended up falling in love with that sport. That's the first time I got to take my leg off and feel the more mobile than with my prosthetic leg on. And then I went to transition. For me at that time, I was using sports as therapy from my experiences in the orphanages I lived in. And I had my second leg amputated above the knee. And I really that's the one thing I thought about was getting back out in the water and doing sports. And then around 2007-8, I learned about the Paralympics. Someone told me about it. I've never heard of it before. I had no idea what it was. And it wasn't until the Paralympic Games where I was in London where we made it. I've never been around such a big group of people that look like me too. So it was like a huge culture shock. I'm like, even though I have prosthetic legs, I'm like, oh my God, that person has no legs. Oh my God, look at that person. It was such a huge culture shock, but so cool to see so many sports. So that's kind of how I got into it. So that's how I got into rowing. And then in 2013, I ended up injuring my back and not being able to go back to rowing, and got into skiing in hopes of skiing would help strengthen and rehab my back to get eventually back into rowing. And that wasn't the case. I stuck to skiing, wasn't able to go back to rowing. And a teammate of mine on the cross country team was also a cyclist, and she said, you should try cycling. And then, of course, every time I try a sport, I'm always thinking about, well, I want to make the Paralympic team. And so that's kind of how it all happened. And it just so happened I was lucky enough to have the support from coaches to make the Paralympic teams. And now my primary sports are cycling and cross-country skiing / biathlon as well. So it's like such a long story. I don't know how to like say it because it's like such an interweaved like web of things.
That's all right. All good. Now let's talk a bit about your highlight. I'm assuming that is the 2 gold medals that you got recently in the 2018 Winter Paralympic Games. Tell us a bit about those 2 and how good was it to receive the medal and obviously to stand on that podium with the American national anthem.
Hearing your anthem that's just the best feeling on earth, and seeing your flag being raised is amazing. This was such a bittersweet games and experience for me because in Sochi, I went into that games as a skier, like skiing for less than a year, and then ended up surprising myself and I think the team with walking away with a silver and a bronze medal. Right. And after that, it made me determined to spend the next 4 years specifically on that one sport to chase that gold medal. And what happened is it took me I started Paralympic stuff in 2012, and it took me my 4th Paralympic Games, around 7-8 years to get my first Paralympic medal. And a lot of people like see me and my story and like my sports, it's like such a success, but they don't get this other side of like, it didn't happen overnight. It took me my 4th Games 7 years later. And that's why getting those 2 medals at Pyeongchang that were gold were incredible, but they were even more incredible because the season before Pyeongchang, leading up to the games, that season I won just about every single race I started, I won. And so I was looking for all 6 gold medals in all 6 events, because I know I have achieved this in the past seasons. I know I could do it. And the biggest difference for me was from all the other games. For in Pyeongchang, that's the first games I was going in with confidence and believing in myself. And that is such a huge overlooked thing, I think, as an athlete. When you're going at that elite level, you have to have that confidence in yourself. And what happened is, right before we left for the games, I ended up falling and breaking my elbow. And I went from being a favorite to win all the events to all of a sudden being told I will not be racing in Korea at all, and that it's over. And then went through multiple doctors. One doctor and flew out to Colorado, told me, okay, you're trying to race how many events? You're trying to do what with your elbow? And he's like, okay, this is not going to be good. It's not going to feel good, but we can do it. And then that's what happened. I went from chasing and fighting for my first chance for my first gold medal to just chasing for an opportunity to start and to race. And then ended up shocking myself because I didn't get to ski for about 3.5 weeks with my elbow leading into Korea. I lost some fitness, and the first race I got a silver in, the second race I got bronze in, and the third race I ended up falling and re-injuring my elbow again. And all the x-rays and everyone said, oh my gosh, I think this is it. I think your game's over. You can't do this. You're just going to damage your arm. And the next day was a sprint, and I wanted to do that so bad. It's my favorite race. And it happened to be that race after dropping out of the day before. That next day was the day that I got my gold medal, followed by the second day with another gold medal. And it was just a moment of relief and just bittersweetness, because I finally I saw so many of my teammates gold medals, and it was so cool watching them and celebrate with them. But then when it's yours and you get to hold it and put it around your neck, and I get to put my medal around my mom's neck, that she's the reason why I wasn't even there, was just the most, like, words will never be able to describe it, but it's just like the most like amazing experience. And hearing your flag and seeing your team and being up there thinking of all the people, like I was the one out there racing, but I had a massive village behind me of people who literally got me to where I was. And it's one of those moments where like everything just flashes all at once, and all those faces that helped you all at once. And cool to represent not just myself, but my country, but those people that helped me.
When you won the gold medal and held it around you and had it around your neck, I guess, how special was it to hold it, and how long did you wear that medal for?
So Pyeongchang, they were actually the heaviest medals out of all the games so far to date. And so it was, I don't think I'm one of those weird people, like I'm so proud of my medal, but medals make me feel uncomfortable at times too. Like it's such a weird thing, because I'm chasing this gold medal, but then I love to wear it, but then like it's more about just holding it and having it and knowing I'm able to achieve it. And I set my goal and I achieved my goal. And I was also terrified to hold it because, like I said, I am a klutz. My first Paralympic medal in London, I ended up dropping it and it broke. So I did not want to break this one. So I'm just like very careful with it. But I definitely stared at it and the box and the medal itself and then they gave you this little like this mascot. It was called Bindabi. And I'm like a 31-year-old woman. I should not be admitting this, but like I slept with that little mascot, that little like teddy bear thing, because he had a little gold medal hat. Like each medal person got like, he either had a gold medal hat, a silver, or a bronze. And so I mainly just like held him and looked at him and had him like staring right at me.
Now, I know with a lot of Olympians and Paralympians, when they especially get the gold medal, they get the bite on it. Did you get that chance to do it yourself, considering you won two of them?
Yeah, of course you have to bite your gold medal, of course.
Was it heavier than you thought when you bite onto it?
Yeah, but what was really strange is when you lean over for them to put your medal on, I wasn't expecting it to be so heavy. And so I was like, I almost fell on that person. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to be making like national news everywhere because I'm the one who just single-handedly destroyed the medal ceremony. But yeah, no. And then like you kind of know because you can feel it and hold it. You're like, all right, I'm not just going to go and yank down on this because I don't want to break my teeth here. But yeah, it's solid. It's pretty heavy. It's really cool.
Now, what does the sport of cycling and skiing, especially cross-country skiing and biathlon, mean to you?
I just love sports in general. For me, being able to, that's when I feel the strongest and more myself and the most freest. And then the most able. I think a lot of people, like it's strange to be like, wait a minute, you have no legs. How on earth do you feel more able when you take them off? And I just feel untouchable when I'm on skis and you're gliding through snow. It's just such an incredible feeling because I get to just zone out and let my body go into automaticity. And my mind is just thinking about things that are not relevant to the race, but just like your place where you go and you just are. And I can't imagine my life without skiing. I can't imagine my life without cycling or sports in general. Cycling is just one of those things that it's so different. I have never felt a speed like that. In a rowing boat, you're sitting down and you're going backwards. Cross-country skiing, you literally will there's only so much you can do and speed that you can feel in cross-country skis because it's very different from alpine. But on a bike, it's just incredible because on a downhill, you can still push yourself even more and just work 24/7 nonstop. And one of the reasons I think why I like cycling is I get to like relive my inner childhood that I didn't get to in some ways because I came to America when I was 7.5. And because of my amputations, I didn't really have a childhood bike or grew up with a bike. And I feel like when I'm not doing those grueling workouts where I just want to die and like, why am I doing this to myself? But the fun rides, it's just so cool. It's just so freeing and you feel untouchable and unstoppable. And I highly recommend anyone, whether you're doing it like recreationally or competitively, bikes are just they're like a childhood staple and a staple in everyone's homes. And I recommend everyone getting a bike.
Now, do you have any short or long-term goals in the Paralympics or like Paralympic sport?
I do for myself as a competitive athlete. I see myself, hopefully, I would love to end my career at home games in LA 2028 for the summer. And potentially, if the games, I will be maybe in my 40s at that time of the 2030. Oh my gosh, this sounds like such a big number from now. But that's when potentially the winter games for skiing will be in the US, maybe. So if that's the case, I will try and push for that. But my main goal within the Paralympics as an athlete is to grow my sports of cycling and skiing because they're so underrepresented globally, but they're mainly underrepresented in the US. And there's so many athletes who don't even know they can be cyclists. They don't know they can do cross-country skiing like I didn't know. And when they do get into it, the resources within the US just aren't there to make that smooth transition. You have to invest $15,000 for a custom-made hand bike just to see if you even like it. And then what happens if you don't like the sport? You just spent $15,000. That's literally a car. And so I want to try and help grow the awareness and just get people excited about the sport. And regardless if I'm able to be in LA 2028 or not, I want to see a full field of women cyclists on the start line. I want to see a full field of women skiers and biathletes and just that sport grow as a whole. And I think that's the cool thing of having so many years of being an athlete it starts out for you and your personal goals, and you get to see how your goals shift to something broader and bigger. And to now I'm just motivated, inspired to help that next generation of athletes to make sure that Paralympic movement continues to grow and build upon the momentum that they have currently.
Because you were born in Ukraine, and then, as you mentioned, you did come across to the US. Why did you make that move?
Thankfully, it was a good move. I didn't have a choice in it. I was adopted, but it was really, really good because the circumstances that I came from were not good. I lived in 3 different orphanages before. My mom, she wanted to adopt a baby, and then she saw a picture of me through this adoption letter that made it to the US somehow, of a family member that just recently adopted that she works with. And she basically knew she wanted to adopt a child that had special needs because she's a speech pathologist and works with kids and adults with learning disabilities or speech impediments. And she had the resources through insurance and finances to support me. And she adopted me single parent. She wasn't married. And that was, at that time, an impossible thing and a crazy thing for a woman, single parent, to adopt a child. And that's basically like, yes, I came to America because she adopted me and literally saved my life, because I was turning 8, but I was 36 inches tall and weighed 34 pounds. So it's like a healthy 3-year-old. And I wasn't like toddler clothes, which is not cute for any 8-year-old to be wearing. Lot less options for styling there. But yeah, and she basically saved my life. And now I got a second chance at life when I moved to America.
We'll finish off with these last 3 questions. The first one is, now I love having US athletes here in Australia. Now, my question to you is, obviously for our Australian listeners and Australian fans that love you and love watching you, especially in those Paralympic Games. Number 1, have you been to Australia? And number 2, would you love to be coming back to Australia?
So I have never, that's the one place I have never been, and I want to go so bad. So she used to be our nutritionist, but she's from Australia. And I think like, I was like, I just want to see a real kangaroo so bad. And she's like, why? Ew. And it's like, I feel like every Australian does not like kangaroos, but I'm like, that's so cool. I don't want to get punched by one, but I just want to see it. I just want to see them jump. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, maybe it's a super stereotypical thing, but I'm a huge animal lover. I mean, I love animals over humans any day, or coffee. It's not a good thing. I know I probably shouldn't be admitting that either, but yes, I've never been to Australia, and I hope to go to Australia one day. And I would love to, I'm sure, go back to Australia, especially because I'm a coffee drinker too. And I hear Australia's got pretty good quality coffee there.
Well, make sure we come to Melbourne, because Melbourne's one of the famous coffee
Really?
around the world. Yes, we make the best coffee in Australia. So you'll love our coffee. You'll be addicted to it even more. So for everyone, especially for people with a disability, how can people get involved, and especially to inspire to hopefully get to where you've got to?
I think like if you're an athlete with a disability and you're looking to be in the Paralympics, is to find that every country does it differently. Here in the US, they have it's called Paralympic sport clubs, and each region of those, so whether you're in the West Coast, the East Coast, the Midwest, they will offer different sports, Paralympic adapted sports. And I didn't have that where I lived in Louisville, Kentucky. I actually live in Champaign, Illinois right now, and I didn't have that, but except that one sport of rowing. And I think that's the one thing is, don't be afraid to try, regardless if it's the first time you're going to be taking off your leg. Don't be afraid to, like, if it's the first time you're going to be transitioning from out of your wheelchair into something and you're worried about how somebody will see when you're in that transition moment and that's not your first time doing it, or just don't be afraid to try and to fail, and then to get up and try again. And if you fail again, you get up and do it until you don't fail. And failing isn't failing. It's just you learning your limits. You're learning where that edge is, and then you just go and push through that edge to the next one. And I firm believer also in trying any and every sport. Just because it's the first one you try doesn't mean that this is the first one you're going to the Paralympics. Every sport you do helps you in that one sport. When you do find it, it'll help you athletically, mentally, and just learn more of your body and awareness in space. And you don't even know how it will sometimes even help you and catapult you. And to people who aren't athletes or disabled people who want to get into Paralympic sport, you could still get involved with it by supporting it, by sharing the stories, by watching it, by social media is huge now. And this is something where it's so cool watching Australia and the UK, because you guys have done an incredible job putting Paralympic athletes and Olympic athletes on the same level field. And for the viewers watching and making it look so cool, and the stories aren't being shared in, oh, good for them, bless their heart kind of way. They're being shared in a really powerful, strong way, where that next little boy or girl is watching the TV and like, that's so cool, I want to do that. That is something that if you don't have a disability and you're not an athlete, you can support that by how you talk about the Paralympics, how you talk about athletes with physical challenges, how you perceive them, and how you pass that on, how your kids hear you talk about it. And there's a lot of ways you can help.
Have some sort of disability. You might as well tell us what exactly it is. When it comes to classification, what does that fall under?
So my disability, the main one is I'm a double above knee amputee. So I'm missing both of my legs above the knee. And that's the one thing a lot of people don't realize, is they assume, oh, I know so-and-so, they also have a prosthetic leg and it's amputated below the knee. It's so different. Whether you have your knees, whether you have your feet, or if you're below the knee, above the knee, or a hip dysartic, your abilities are just going to be different. And it's not because I don't want to do it. I physically cannot do it and have to adjust in the way I do certain things. And for that, because there's different levels of amputations, there are different levels of spinal cord injuries, of different levels of visual impairment or deaf, and all these categories that are in the Paralympics. There's different categories of what should be fair for your classification. So in skiing, I'm a 12, which means I have my full entire core. And as an amputee, I'm usually the highest level in a sitting event of the classification. So skiing, I'm a LW12, and biathlon, I'm an LW12. And it goes down from 12 to 11.5, 11, 10.5, and so on to 10. And skiing, my classification, or cycling, my classification is an H5. So H is for hand cycle, and then H5 is the kneelers. So it's not the lay down. I'm like in a seated position, but going forward and just using my arms to propel myself instead of legs. And my disability, but I'm also in a unique boat with my disability and classification stuff too, because my disability resulted in, when I was in Ukraine, I was born, and it was the nuclear radiation exposure when I was in my mom's birth stomach from Chernobyl that caused all my birth defects, because I was born with legs, but it wasn't until I got to America where I had my legs amputated, because in Ukraine, they just didn't have the resources for that. But the way I found out it was radiation that caused everything, because when I came to America, I went to a dentist, and the dentist saw radiation in my teeth. And I also don't have any enamel in my teeth. And the only thing that can strip enamel in birth is radiation. And also my legs were deformed, my hands were webbed, I didn't have 5 fingers. I had 5 fingers, not 4 fingers on a thumb. So I had multiple reconstructive hand surgeries. Like I technically should not be able to hold a cup or write. I also missing a bicep on my left and right. I used to remember my left and right because I had my real leg and my fake leg. I'm like, okay, my left is my fake leg. Now when they're both gone, it's a little harder to remember your left and right because they're both gone. And then also I like a couple of my organs were also, I don't have all of my organs. I have one kidney. So for the fact that everywhere all over my body was affected, the only thing that can affect something in multiple parts of your body is radiation. And that kind of is the extent of my disability. Although I don't consider myself as disabled, it's just, I see my legs as the same as a pair of glasses or a pair of like, just when you color your hair brown or blonde, it's just an accessory. It's just a little more bionic than usual.
That's amazing. And I've got to finish up with this one last one because that's inspiring. In the especially what we had to go through. For everyone that should follow your progress in the Paralympic Games coming up in 2021 in Tokyo, and we definitely hope we really want you to make it, and obviously the 2022 Games in Beijing in the winter. How can our Australian fans that love watching you get to follow you on the socials?
If you guys want to follow just a bunch of animals and coffee and a lot of leg stuff in my sports, I'm very active on Instagram. It's Oksana Masters, or Twitter, Oksana Masters, and I do have a Facebook athlete page, Oksana Masters USA. But yeah, you can follow me and just follow. I encourage you guys to follow more your local Paralympic teams too, and your local Paralympic athletes. There's incredible athletes. I know personally too, and it's about when you follow one, you should. I strongly encourage you guys to follow more than one because we can learn so much from each other. We come from different backgrounds, and yeah.
Well, Oki, thank you so much for giving up your time to join us. It's awesome having the show. We'd definitely love to have you back on the show because obviously we really haven't covered as much as we would love to cover it because obviously with time differences and obviously you've got a very busy schedule today as well. So we want to thank you for giving up your time. We'll definitely hope we can get you back on the show sometime in the next couple of weeks to continue on the chat, and hopefully, and we'll definitely be supporting you right behind you.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for it being midnight there for you.
That's right, all good, no worries. And that's Oki Masters there, of course, the summer and winter US Paralympian. Of course, be hoping to defend that winter two-time gold medal, of course, in Beijing 2022, but also, of course, hoping to get her first one in the summer one coming up at Tokyo in 2021. There's more on the Smash Sports Show right after this. Don't go away here on Lockdown Friday.